Hello everyone, this is POW Ponder on Weather. In this update, we're going to be talking about our next winter storm setup as an Arctic blast in the polar vortex plunges south. So if you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button and notification bell to get all my daily updates to keep you ahead of the storm. So let's take a look at the overall 500 millibar pattern this morning for your Monday, January 17th update. And man, we're taking a look at all the colder air anomalies up here into the Northeast and New England. That's the snowstorm that we literally tracked for the past 7 days on this channel for 2,500 miles and that dumped a lot of snow in its wake. And now it's up here into the Northeast and New England, dumping that heavier snow. And that's eventually going to be moving out as we get into later on this afternoon into the evening hours, as we're going to start to see the ridge start to build out west, bringing those above average temperature anomalies. And this trough out twos out west off the west coast, we're going to be watching this traverse across throughout the week as cold Arctic air starts to plunge southward, and that's going to be mixing up, bringing our next winter storm. So let's take a look at the overall jet streams with the polar jet. So you typically have got two jets. You got the polar jet to the north and the subtropical jet to the south, and this polar jet is going to be starting to buckle. So as the teleconnections go negative and as the upper air guidance pushes this polar jet, this is going to be able to buckle and plunge southward as that cold Arctic air plunges southward. At the same time, this subtropical jet has almost been non-existent because we're in a La Nina right now, and almost a moderate La Nina. But there are signs here of, as of late in the last week or two, we're starting to see subtle hints that this subtropical jet is going to start to get a little bit more active. So based on the Southern Oscillation Index, because if we take it back into layman's terms here, the La Nina started back in the middle of October. So when you have a +8, that's typically a La Nina, in which we've been in a La Nina, we're continuing to remain in a La Nina, but when you start to see these negative drops in the SOI index, and especially with the last 30-day moving average down to a 1. So that's not typically a La Nina anymore. That's typically increases a little bit warmer waters out there in the Pacific. That activates the subtropical jet. So we're going to start to see more opportunities of low pressures forming off that subtropical jet coming across. At the same time, we're going to have some of the coldest temperatures of the season plunging south, and that's going to start making things more interesting for portions of the south as far as like winter weather is concerned. So but let's take a look at the overall teleconnections, because this is also a driving force, because the EPO is negative right now, and that's where we have some of the colder anomalies out here east, and it's going to continue to remain negative. In fact, it even gets further negative as we go deeper into January, and you can see where it is by the time we get in February 1st. So that's a good indication. A lot of the cold air is east and is going to remain east, and if not even get colder as the month progresses deeper into January. So let's take a look at the overall Climate Prediction Center, and they're highlighting those colder anomalies. So you have the ridge building out west. That's where we're going to see some of those warmer temperature anomalies. And as the jet stream buckles and as the EPO goes negative, we're going to start to see the colder anomalies out into our eastern 2/3 of the U.S. with our coldest anomalies setting up for portions of the southeast. And like I mentioned, at the same time with that subtropical jet getting more active, that's going to set up more opportunities the further south you live for possibilities of winter weather coming up. So let's take a look at the overall vorticity setup this morning. So you see these pieces of energy that set up over the Northeast and the New England. That's the snowstorm that's going to be winding down this afternoon, as the other piece of energy, that trough, is setting up out west. So we're going to be watching these two pieces of energy kind of come across. This is going to move out, and we're going to watch this one right here, and also this one too, that's going to be diving southward. As this one comes across, we're watching these two possibilities possibly phase together as they get more into the southeast region. So let's take a look at today. So as for today, we've got that snowstorm winding down up here into the Northeast. Now we're getting the heavier snow into portions of eastern Ohio, portions of Pennsylvania here, especially into Buffalo. Buffalo's getting clocked right now. I think they're up to like 15 inches of snow. And that's heavier snows moving into Toronto, going into Montreal. That traverses across into New Hampshire, into Vermont, going into Maine with the heavier snow as this system is going to be pushing out. There's a setup along the West Coast there. There's that trough bringing some much needed rain into Los Angeles area. So yes, we're going to start to see subtle hints of that, of much needed precipitation for the southern jet stream down here. As this atmospheric river, it's still going to be prevalent, but it's not going to be nearly as intense as it was, as we're starting to see kind of subtle hints of things starting to shift. And as we're watching these cold fronts come down, we're pretty high and dry for a good part of the country today. So as we move into tomorrow, we have a new clipper system that's going to be coming in on our extreme northern areas into northern Minnesota and northern Wisconsin, with some of that heavier snow starting to drift southward. You can see the low pressure out here by Los Angeles. That's going to start to get a little more active as we start getting throughout the week. So as we move into that Wednesday time frame, January the 19th, you start to see that first cold front dropping southward. It's going to be dropping south in a big way and going to bring some of the coldest temperatures of the season as that cold air presses southward. We have out ahead of it, we're still going to be in the warm sector out ahead of it with that south wind. So like on Tuesday, we're back into the middle 70s in Texas for a good chunk of North Texas, but that Arctic blast plunges on Wednesday. Out ahead of it, we're still warmer out here into our south and portions of the southeast, and that could activate some severe weather on the day on Wednesday. And the Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted a marginal risk for severe weather in and around the Houston area, going into Jackson, as well as Pasadena, going into Lafayette here, into Beaumont, Texas. So this area is going to be under the gun to seeing some of those strong to severe thunderstorms with that south wind, before the cold front plunges southward. So you can see the temperatures by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon, about 3 o'clock here. That cold air is plunging southward. There's your afternoon temperatures way up in Canada. Of all your negative anomalies, negative temperatures, 10 below zero temperatures, and those negative temperatures plunge south into Dakotas. We're back in the 20s again in Missouri, and back in the 30s in the afternoon, and that continues to plunge southward. And there's your warm sector that's going to create that severe weather ahead of the cold front on Wednesday. So as we move into that Thursday time frame, we're going to watch these vorticities kind of merge together. There's that trough moving across. Now it's going to be setting up over portions of Texas as that vorticity that was up in Canada is now up in the upper Midwest. And we're going to watch these systems try to more or less phase together as the week progresses. And as they do, they could be setting up shop over the southeast to bring our next winter storm setup. So let's take a look at the overall setup for Thursday. As that cold air continues to plunge south, there's the red line. That is your freezing line. So like I mentioned, things start to get a little bit more interesting for portions of the south as the subtropical jet starts to get a little more active down here. We're going to start to see a little bit more lift in the atmosphere. So rain could be breaking out into portions of Louisiana, going into Mississippi and Alabama, going into Georgia here. And we could see a little bit of a changeover as those systems starts to phase together by the time we get into Thursday, with that cold air continuing to plunge southwards. A little bit of a changeover now, getting into portions of Kentucky and West Virginia. And as we look at the temperatures on Thursday, look at the cold air. There's going to be plenty of cold air in place. These are actual temperatures when you wake up on January 20th. Look at all those cold negative temperatures of 30 below zero up here in Canada, and 10 to 20 below in much of the Dakotas and Minnesota, as those negative temperatures plunge down into Iowa here, with those single digits into Nebraska, getting into the teens in Kansas and the teens in Oklahoma, and then widespread 20s for the Texas Panhandle and much of North Texas, getting all the way down into Austin for the 20s. So you can see the cold air continuing to push further south, as that jet stream starts to buckle, the EPO goes more negative. So as we get deeper into January, it's going to get more negative, and these colder temperatures are going to remain in place for a good, a long period of time. So as we move, look at that Thursday wind chills, and that's what I'm saying. That's some really cold stuff, guys. This is actual feels like to the body of 48 below zero up here in Canada. That is some dangerous stuff, as those negative 20s, wind chills, and even teens down here in North Texas with single-digit feels likes in Oklahoma. So this, you can see the cold front's going to be really packing a punch as we move into the day on Thursday. And if you look at some of the upper air temperature anomalies up in the upper atmosphere, it's got plenty of cold air. So that basically implies that cold air is going to be hanging around a while. So as the cold air continues to plunge southward, we've got that subtropical jet starting to get a little bit more active, right? And as these two start to merge, with those two vorticities starting to merge together, that's where things start to get interesting again for portions of the south and the southeast as far as winter weather is concerned. Because by the time we get into Friday time frame, look at the actual temperatures now. There's the polar vortex plunging south with negative 20 below zero into Iowa here, where they had all the heavy snow. That's where they're seeing that snowpack on the ground in Des Moines, where they picked up those 15 inches of snowfall, 14, 15 inches of snowfall there. But look at the negative temperatures plunging into the Northeast and up into New England here. Those are in Pennsylvania. That's definitely by far the coldest temperatures of the season you've seen so far, with widespread 20s getting all the way down into portions of the Southeast with precipitation around. So that's where things start to get interesting again by the time we get into that Friday time frame, as those two pieces of energy try to merge together and set up shop, with the low pressure setting up in the Gulf again. We could be seeing some of those overrunning conditions causing more icy, freezing sleet and freezing rain again into the Carolinas, back into North Carolina, and back some more snow into portions of South Carolina and North Carolina, as these two systems start to phase together. As more cold air, look at the isobars really starting to tighten up. You see the winds plunging southward. More cold air continues to press southward. In the middle of the country, we could be looking at more snow starting to break out, but north too, with that polar jet buckling into Montana, going into the Dakotas again, back into portions of Colorado. And then as we move into that Friday time frame, there's that low pressure. It's setting up shop. Look at the 540 line all the way down in the deep Texas. We have not seen that so far. Look at the high pressure, 1040, 1042. That's some deep Arctic cold plunging southward that's locked in place for an extended period of time. So as it does, it's going to create opportunities for winter weather down here to the south. So we'll have to watch these as the week progresses, as those two pieces of energy start to kind of merge together, and as this low pressure really starts to set up shop into portions of the Gulf here. And this will traverse across in portions of the southeast, and where it does, it's going to create winter weather opportunities as those colder anomalies. Look at the 540 line all the way down almost to the coast here. So that is by far the coldest temperatures of the season, and all this should be in the form of freezing precipitation, because we're going to have plenty of cold air around on Saturday. With, look at the low temperatures, widespread 20s all the way down to Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama to Georgia, all the way to the coast, guys. Savannah freezing. So that's plenty of cold air. Negative temperature anomalies for the Northeast, minus 22 here. That's indicative of the polar vortex kind of stretching out and spinning spokes of energy, plunging southward with by far the coldest temperature anomalies of the season. And as we're going to be watching this storm track come up the coast here, so we're going to be just watching this opportunities. I just wanted to highlight the next potential winter storm setup as the week progresses. But of course, we're getting into 6 days out now, so it all depends on the ultimate track of this low pressure. But all this should be in the form of wintry precipitation, because the temperatures are gonna be plenty cold especially as we go through past Wednesday timeframe after that Arctic air, and it continues to remain colder throughout the week. And even next week, we have another piece of very cold temperatures plunging into the Northeast and parts of New England here with more winter weather opportunities. So there's definitely a lot more opportunities on the table for winter weather. But here's the overall precipitation for this week with the atmospheric river kind of dying down. We're starting to see subtle hints, again, subtle hints of this subtropical jet starting to imply a little bit more precipitation opportunities for that southern California, getting into Arizona, getting into portions of New Mexico. I mean, these areas have just been bone dry with the La Nina. So we're starting to see subtle hints of some of this precipitation trying to filter in. But as we get into the Gulf with that low pressure, these temperatures out here in the Gulf are plenty warm. So it's going to have plenty of lift with these low pressures that get in the Gulf with cold air plunging south. That's going to create our winter weather opportunities for a good chunk of the Southeast and the East Coast as we get into later into the week, that Friday, Saturday, Sunday time frame. So hey, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button if you hadn't already, and catch me in the next update where I protect you before and after storm.